Hello, everyone. Welcome to How It Started, How It's Going, 25 years of web archiving at the Library of Congress. I'm Melissa Wertheimer, a senior digital collections specialist for web archiving at the Library of Congress. I'm proud to be joined by my colleague, digital collections specialist Tracy Haupt-Fugate, and our supervisor and head of the web archiving section, Abby Grotke. We are so glad that you have chosen to join us to learn more about web archiving at the Library of Congress. Throughout our presentation today, we'll be sharing links in the chat for your reference. And if you have questions for us, please type them in the chat and we'll address them at the end during the unrecorded Q&A portion. We want to welcome you here, whether you are brand new to digital preservation or a longtime practitioner and advocate. To help bring everyone together, let's start with a definition of what web archiving is. The International Internet Preservation Consortium defines web archiving as, quote, the process of collecting portions of the World Wide Web, preserving the collections in an archival format, and then serving the archives for access and use. Why do or should we archive the web? Well, many documents and cultural heritage content of interest to memory institutions are now only available on the web, of a dynamic nature, and can disappear at any time. One of the biggest concepts to emphasize is that it's impossible to collect everything on the web, nor is it technologically feasible. And just because something is accessed on the web doesn't necessarily mean it's web archivable. For what can be archived from the web, how is it done? Using IIPC's structured definition, collecting is done with archival quality software known as crawlers that download the content and generate work files, logs, and reports. Humans choose where the crawlers start and write instructions for how far or deep the crawler goes. Preservation actions are taken on the work files, which contain the captures. The works get stored in a digital preservation environment and incorporated into an ongoing digital preservation workflow. To serve the content, users access and interact with the captures through browser-based replay software. Indexes of the web archives assist the replay software to locate the content so that the software can identify and render the content from within the work files. The replay software varies by institution, and access depends on institutional policies and laws governing copyright, access, use, and privacy. People are central to each of these steps for the entire process to be successful. And now I'll pass it on to Abby, who will share how our program started.
I have to unmute. Thank you, Melissa. So how exactly did web archiving begin at the Library of Congress? Well, we can't think of a better way to illustrate the history of our web archiving program than with captures of our own website, of course. So here's what the Library of Congress homepage looked like in 2000, the year of our program's origins as a pilot project. We just ended our 25th year last year. Next slide. The Library of Congress web archiving program started in 2000 as a small pilot program, and it was nicknamed the Minerva Web Archiving Project. I joined the Minerva team in 2002, so I've been around quite a long time. Minerva, which was also known as Mapping the Internet Electronic Resources Virtual Archive, was established to initiate a broad program to collect and preserve web-based primary source materials. A multidisciplinary team of library staff representing cataloging, legal, public services, and technology services studied methods to evaluate, select, collect, catalog, provide access to, and preserve these materials for future generations of researchers. As a part of the pilot, we set out to archive the 2000 presidential election. Here's a capture of the Minerva Project webpage on June 7th, 2006. in the Library of Congress Web Archive, which lists web archives available as 107th Congress, election 2002, September 11th, and election 2000. Next slide. The second landmark event-based collection during the Minerva pilot program was the September 11th Web Archive. It was a collaboration between the Library of Congress and external partners. On the left is a 2006 capture of the collection's homepage on the library's website. You can definitely see how web design has evolved when you compare that to our current collection framework on the right. Next slide. In 2004, the library's former Office of Strategic Initiatives, which was on the IT side of the library, created a web capture team to support the goal of managing and sustaining at-risk digital content. The team was charged with building a library-wide understanding and technical infrastructure for capturing web content. The team collaborated with library staff and national and international partners to identify policy issues, establish best practices, and build tools to collect and preserve web content. The Minerva pilot team eventually merged with this group to form one unit focused on web capture, as we called it at the time. During the 2005 to 2006 era, members of the team focused on working with staff from around the library to help broaden the expertise and understanding of web capture activities, with a goal to expand efforts beyond the relatively narrow scope of event-based collecting that we had done to date, such as elections. Here's a 2006 capture of the program's webpage at the time. Next to it, you can see a screenshot of our current program page for comparison. At some point, you can tell we changed from web capture to web archiving. Many of you who have done this a long time know that the terminology gets tossed around and is different. Next slide. Here's a visual overview of the many changes in technology our program has encountered. Although we began in 2000, our first internal workflow tool was developed in 2003, and that was called the Leaderboard. It was built in response to a need to seek permission from site owners and to record those permissions. This was later replaced by Digiboard, which is our current in-house tool for collection management, nomination of content, permissions, and much more. And that's been through a number of iterations, as you can see here. Because of the scale of our harvests, we use external services to run our crawls. The crawlers each external provider has used has varied and has included open source and proprietary tools. The first crawler, which was used by Alexa Internet, was called Mercator. This was the crawler used during the Minerva pilot. And Alexa at that time was running crawls on behalf of the Internet Archive. So we were working with Internet Archive and Alexa ran the crawls. Once the Internet Archive developed the open source archival crawler Heritrix, that became the primary crawler that captured our content. For a few years, select seeds in our collections were crawled by the Internet Archive's browser-based high-fidelity crawler called Browsler. And our current contractor, based in the UK, MirrorWeb, uses both Heritrix and their own proprietary crawler called Cathode. So the tools have also changed over time. Playback has also changed quite a bit over the 25 years that we've been doing this. During the Minerva pilot project, users needed to go directly to the Internet Archive to view the content that was part of the pilot, and it was kind of integrated into the Wayback Machine. The library then later implemented its own locally hosted instance of Wayback, beginning in about 2005. As our collections exponentially grew and changes in the tools landscape happened, many national libraries shift to using Open Wayback, which we did too. This was supported by the International Internet Preservation Consortium for many years, but is not currently supported. In recent years, new next generation tools have been developed to improve access to web archives. This includes open source Python-based replay systems developed by a web recorder and supported by IIPC and the web archiving community called PyWeb. During our ongoing transition phase from Open Wayback to PyWeb, users of the library's web archives can interact with captures through one or both of these playback tools that are currently on lock.gov. And you can, it depends on like where the year of what you're looking for, where it is in our process and our indexing status. So we're in the middle of this big transition. It's taken a lot longer than we had anticipated due to our scale and infrastructure challenges here at LC. Next slide. We thought we'd talk about where we sit organizationally, because I know a lot of you working in this field like to know this kind of information. It's helpful. The Library of Congress is obviously a large, complex institution, and it may help to understand where we sit in this big place. Web archiving currently happens in the National Library part of the library, in what we call our Library Collections and Services Group, otherwise known as LCSG, the largest unit in the Library of Congress. Collecting policies are developed in our Collection Development Office. Selecting and collection development work happens by recommending officers who are language and subject experts. My staff is currently in the web archiving section within our Digital Services Directorate. Our directorate is completely separate from the directorate that leads the reading rooms and the special collections, which is the researcher and collection services area. The law library also participates in the program and has their own reading room. Staff in our overseas offices, which are part of the Acquisitions and Bibliographic Access Directorate, also contribute to the web archives. My staff provides overall support for the program, and we're sort of the technical experts and liaisons with various other parts of the library, like our IT staff who do infrastructure and tools that support our work, the lawyers in the general counsel's office, and all of these other staff we've talked about. Externally, my staff also liaises with our contracting vendor, the harvesting vendor, and we take the lead on communications and training. Now I'm going to pass it over to Melissa to talk about the work that we currently do.
Thanks, Abby. So that's a summary of how it started. So how's it going? Well, our section is in the middle of everything web archiving because we facilitate the program. We set requirements for our colleagues in the Office of the Chief Information Officer, acronym OCIO, who build and maintain transfer, replay, and storage environments, and we collaborate with them to get web archives released online. We provide a technological perspective to the Collection Development Office, which is responsible for selection priorities and policies. We manage the web crawling contract with our vendor and collaborate with them on quality assurance and shepherding the collection's materials through many transfer and storage pipelines. We support the subject librarians, the recommending officers, who select content through trainings, documentation, and email support on web archives, collection management, metadata, and our in-house workflow database, Digiboard. We also translate those nominations from the librarians into data for our vendor who runs the contract crawls. We also promote our program and the web archiving field through internal advocacy channels, including a newsletter, staff interest group, and listservs. External advocacy efforts include engaging with the wider web archiving community at events like this one, thanks DPC, conference presentations, and professional service. The library's Collection Policy Committee sets priority collecting areas and guidance each year. Web archive collection proposals and updates to existing collections are reviewed by the Web Archiving Collection Development Working Group, which is led by the Collection Development Office and made up of representatives from curatorial divisions. Recommending officers from those curatorial divisions select the content for the web archives, guided by the library's collection policy statements for specific subject areas, as well as the supplementary guidelines for web archiving and social media. Note that we are not currently collecting social media due to the technical challenges of crawling and copyright ambiguity around collective social media. However, we used to. So there is some social media in the earlier web archives. So this is a concrete example of how our staff informs policy through a technical perspective. So what gets crawled and shared with the public? We have a permissions-based model for collecting, as opposed to the more common crawl opt-out model. The library's Office of the General Counsel determines whether we need to get permission from the site's rights holder based on where it's hosted and the type of content. So here's what all of that collaboration looks like at a very high level. The first three steps represent the planning and approvals for new collections. The next six represent the nomination, permissions process, and preparation for crawling. And then in the middle, we harvest the content, do some quality assurance, and transfer the content to the library for indexing and access. We have a 1 year embargo on public access to captures so as not to compete with the live web. We use that time to create minimal descriptive records and prepare the content for access on the library's website. The recommending officers, the selectors of the content, can opt to create seed level enhanced description using Library of Congress subject headings, LC name authority files, and more controlled vocabularies. These enhanced records allow for more links between the web archives and all kinds of digital objects in our collections. This gives users a wider context of relationships, such as shared creators of websites and digitized paper archives, or subjects of archived websites and those of digitized oral histories, or common geographical locations represented by web archives in different web archive collections, for example. Our institution does not perform large scale or domain level web crawling. The crawled content falls into one of two main branches of collecting, comprehensive collecting and representative collecting. Comprehensive collecting means our core documentation responsibilities, which include legislative branch agency websites, congressional member and committee sites, and U.S. national election campaign sites. Representative collecting means that we aim to collect a sample of culturally and historically significant websites to represent a particular collecting area. Our representative collections encompass event-based collections, which are time-bound, like the World War I Centennial Web Archive here, and thematic collections, which support subject areas used by the US Congress, researchers, and the public, such as business, science, art, music, literature, public policy, history, and more. The example on this slide is the Brazil Cordell Literature Web Archive. The thematic collections also collect around formats such as web comics, online zines, online serials, and GIS file formats. A question we often get is, how big is the library's web archive? Well, it's huge, with over 5.8 petabytes of data. The library's web archiving program has grown considerably since 2000 and continues to grow every year. The data includes not just the captures, the copies of the websites, but also the indexes and files about them. This data represents online content published in 138 languages and hosted in 217 countries. These languages and countries span 204 total Web Archive collections, 83 of which are considered active collections because they're still growing. We're currently crawling, meaning copying with web archiving technology, over 16,800 seed URLs. That includes entire websites, specific pages within websites, and individual PDF files published on the web. Those seed URLs are the starting points for the tool that we use to capture websites, the crawler. The crawlers follow links on the seed URLs to discover more content to follow, as well as special instructions we give it to find or ignore specific files like uploaded documents or photos. In web archiving parlance, those instructions are called scopes. In addition to exploring individual collections and captures, users can also experience a select number of our collections at scale through datasets. Select datasets are made available to enable researchers to use computational methods for bulk analysis of the collection. We make these datasets available as part of the library's broader digital strategy to support emerging styles of research by providing bulk access to the library's digital collections. In collaboration with LC Labs, the web archiving section has made select data sets available for a small set of selected media types from .gov domains, metadata that describes the United States elections web archive, Iraq War 2003 web archive selected image metadata, meme generator, and Giphy.com metadata, and dinosaur comics. Remember those indexes and work files we mentioned earlier that become part of our digital preservation environment? Well, they're vital to the generation of these data sets, from the date and timestamps to the URLs, the file types, and more. Now, even if this isn't the type of research you do, it's another way to make the case for web archiving at your institution, that web archives support new research methods. And now I'll pass it on to Tracy, who will talk about the web archiving community and resources.
Thank you, Melissa. Part of our work at the library involves collaborating with national and international colleagues to share knowledge and help grow the field of digital preservation. Web archiving practitioners participate in all kinds of professional organizations and contribute to the field through working groups, leadership roles, official publications, and more. Sometimes the library holds an institutional membership, and in other cases, staff hold individual memberships. No matter which organization you look at, the web archiving community is dispersed across a broad range of information professionals and digital-oriented ones especially. The only web archiving specific organization, however, is the International Internet Preservation Consortium, also known as IIPC. The Library of Congress was a founding member back in 2003 and has helped to lead the organization and learn from the members within it ever since. Next slide, please. If web archiving as a format-specific form of digital preservation is new to you, we hope that you'll continue learning. Here are some free resources, including some rich collaborations between DPC and IIPC. These materials help new practitioners learn about the specific area of digital preservation and also provide support for making the case to start or grow a program at their own institutions. Blogs, conference presentations, and survey reports can also help you to develop an understanding of the evolving state of the web archiving field. Now, there are a lot of links on the slide, so just a reminder that all links are being shared in the chat. Next slide, please. Tools are, of course, a big part of any digital preservation discussion, especially when it comes to web archiving. Here are a few places you can go to learn about the work file format and tools that serve the various functions of web archiving, from crawl to display, many of which are open source. Next slide. One of the best ways to advocate for web archiving as a form of digital preservation is to understand web archives as a user. There are two places we love to recommend. The first is our own collections at the Library of Congress. We hope you will feel inspired by this presentation to check out the 200+ web archive collections the Library of Congress has online. After over 25 years of collecting and preserving, we're proud to say that access is part of the web archiving process and that so many people at our institution collaborate to make that happen. Next slide. We also encourage you to check out the collaborative collections led by IIPC's Content Development Working Group. Exploring these collections allows you to get to know a user interface different from the libraries. They use Archivit from the Internet Archive. These 22 collections encompass contributions from both the public and IIPC members. And a 23rd collection for the 2026 Winter Olympics and Paralympics is wrapping up as we speak. Subscribe to IIPC's blog so that you can stay on top of public calls for nominations to collaborative collections. And now back to Abby for some closing thoughts.
Thanks, Tracy. So some final reflections after 25 years. We decided to dig up in our archive, and we found a 2014 capture from our web comics web archive, which is one of our favorites, of an XKCD comic called Before the Internet, which seemed fitting. It has certainly been fun and interesting for us to reflect on the last 25 years, both internally through our recent blog post that you may have seen, and with you today. Though we have a mature program and a very big program, we do remain humbled that we don't have all the answers, and we still face many common challenges and experiences that you all face in your institutions. Regular internal advocacy is necessary to maintain the program and secure resources. We have experienced many challenges around our organizational structure changes. I can't count how many office moves and org charts that the staff working on web archiving has had over the years before landing in our home where we currently sit in the organization. And we have ongoing challenges with scale, particularly the migration of our replay tools, as I mentioned, from OpenWayback to PyWeb, which has taken considerably longer than we'd hoped. Also, web archiving staff, past and present, have had to learn on the job. Trust us, you can too if you're just starting out. We also understand that web archiving truly takes a village, and no one organization works in a silo. A shout out and again, thank you to the IIPC and DPC communities for all of the support over the years. The tools and their capabilities are always changing, and with the scale of collecting that we are working with, we know that there are ways we can always iterate and improve our workflows and processes, and it's important for us not to be afraid to try things in a new way. So with that, we're totally looking forward to the next 25 years ahead, and we look forward to your questions.